Clock. Well, in a piece of really comforting news, the Doomsday Clock, which I don't know if people were even aware. Oops, we're both going for it. Go ahead. You push the buttons. The Doomsday Clock 2023 Times says the world is closer than ever to global catastrophe. The Doomsday Clock was moved forward on Tuesday to 90 seconds to midnight, due in part to worries over Russians' veiled threats of nuclear warfare. Which even just the framing of that is really upsetting to me.
Is it really because of that, or you know, us giving them tanks? I mean, is that part of it? Like
we're just going to keep escalating a nuclear superpower and you know, our offense. And again, you know, I know we have to say this every single time. We're not in favor of the war crimes being committed by Putin and Russia. We're not in favor of you know, coming into another country illegally and trying to claim land for your own. Right. But it did not happen in a vacuum. And it's not even so much of whether or not you're in favor or support. It's more like the only path out of this eventually, tomorrow or in 300 years, is some kind of negotiated peace at some point, and that involves concessions. So knowing that's going to happen, knowing that Ukrainians are losing three digits, at least 100 people a day. That's what they're saying right now.
We lose that in Sacramento to COVID every week.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Yeah. I mean, seriously, we just don't value human life. So what does it matter to most people in power? But the fact that we are pushing and escalating and sending tanks that a year ago we said we would never, you know, we would never send them this artillery. Like, it really feels like the what is it? The crazies are running the asylum. That's not
every step, every line that we said we wouldn't cross in this battle is being crossed, and then it's just gradually escalated to where people are supporting it more and more. Like, oh well, yeah, they need tanks. Yeah,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Next, it's going to be a no-fly zone.
You got Biden on TV saying, you know, going out of his way to say it's not just the tanks, even it's the tanks and the manpower to support it and the parts and the training, which all of that escalates to a point where, okay, 5 people are over to train this squad on the tanks. They get killed in a bomb that comes over from Russia. Now what do we do? What's our response?
Article 5 of NATO, right? Now it's somebody who is part of the NATO alliance, has been hurt or killed in the line of duty fighting Russia. And that just triggers everything. I mean, you know, and also it can just be, I mean, first of all, I don't think that there are any journalists on the ground in Ukraine actually reporting independent of what the Ukraine government tells them. I mean, certainly we don't have anybody like that over here in the US on like cable news, right? Everybody is, it's like they get the notes from the State Department and they just completely unquestioningly repeat those notes. They're just stenographers. And so we are dealing with facts on the ground from Ukraine the same way. It's all just what the government is handing off to the journalists who are embedded there, which of course is not the way to find out the truth. If you're an embedded journalist, you already are taking some direction from the military with whom you are embedded.
Absolutely. Little by little, NATO and the United States are creeping closer to a catastrophic scenario. To the catastrophic scenario, President Joe Biden said we must strive to prevent. I mean, obviously, like we always repeat, I'm very anti-imperialist. I think Russia moving into Ukraine is bad. It doesn't matter that that it's unprovoked, or it doesn't matter that it's provoked, is what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. Russia should not be expanding its territory into Ukraine. Having said that, lots of things happen in the world that we don't have to agree with and we think are wrong. But the public's being sold this narrative that it's like Hitler, you know, it's the domino theory again. It's like expanding. It's World War II. So the whole world came together in World War II to stop Hitler.
Right. Guess who also helped stop Hitler? It's like Russia. Yeah. I mean, gotta kind of memory
You
hole some
can't
of those parts. Yeah.
you can't look at the actual conditions in this situation and think Putin has any ability to keep going in a big way, a la
Right.
Hitler and Germany in the 30s.
Yeah.
It's just not
And he
the
also
same.
hasn't said, I mean, not that you can trust what a global leader says, but like that was never the stated intention anyway. Certainly no one comes close to trying to dominate the world anywhere as close as the US, right? Which I think is why so
We're
much of the
good.
rest of the world is not on board with this. I mean, obviously, the US and Europe are fully in favor of this escalation, but the global south isn't. And, we're seeing new alignments, which make me hopeful that possibly it will tamper down some of the US's imperialist ventures. But I don't know how many people will be thrown into the cannon, on the way towards having a multipolar globe.
I don't know. When you look at all that the US has done, the countries we always help have some resources we want. And Ukraine's got a ton of lithium. And what's lithium used for? I mean, electric
Yeah, I mean, help,
cars.
by the way. I don't know how many, I think a lot of Ukrainians, now, of course, everything changes as this escalates, people dig in their heels even more. But I mean, even up until like a month ago, the last poll I read was even Ukrainians in Ukraine, they want some kind of negotiated peace. This is untenable.
Yeah.
This just, how much longer can this continue and conscripting men into the armed forces? The men are getting older and older as they're doing that. I mean, none of this ends well.
Well, it ends with us being involved on the Russian border is what happens, because when we left Afghanistan, we're not really completely gone, but the military industrial complex needed somewhere to spend money. And so, barring actually getting us into a nuclear war, which they don't really want, obviously, that's going to kill us. This is a way to funnel money from the US government to the people that fund our leaders in power.
Right.
And it keeps the arms game going forever. And that keeps getting some of these people reelected because they take money from these people.
Yeah.
Which is why you saw a lot of this propaganda, like this chart. I don't know how many people saw this chart. This was an example of them trying to show that defense spending has dropped. So if you look at this chart, we're in blue, the US is in blue, and in red is China.
Bad, evil China. And look at how
it makes it. Yeah, well, it makes it look like China just blew up past us and is spending way more on the military. And look at our decline, and look at we're losing our stature in the world as the dominant, peacekeeping people we are, is the idea. But if you look at that, if you read the
fine print,
I forget what that's called on a map.
Axis, the y-axis.
Yeah, but I was looking for a different term. Anyway,
sorry.
all the other countries are plotted on the left axis. The US is plotted on the right axis. So if this chart was realistic, this is what it looks like.
I mean, it took us a second because we were looking at both of them. And I'm like, I don't understand what they did because we're looking at something so small. And what they did, if you look at that first chart, is they plotted the US's spending on the right and everybody else was on the left. So if you look closely, it says the US, which is the blue line, but next to the line, it says right axis, which starts at $400 billion and goes up to $1 trillion. And everybody else is plotted on that left axis, which tops out at 300 billion. I mean, it is so dishonest.
It is the most dishonest graph I've probably ever seen.
I mean, really crazy. Yeah.
I mean, this is what it really is when you take out the bullshit. Yeah. So you're seeing this stuff to, make a small dent on a couple people that see it. And, a few people online could see that chart, and then they'll forever just go, oh, I saw this chart. US is losing to China. we're spending
Yeah,
too
we're
much.
losing. Exactly. It's framed like that. Like we have to be scared of everything. And meanwhile, like 3 years ago when COVID first started, we already knew that we were in really dangerous ground with climate disaster. That's a time between climate disaster and a global pandemic for the nations of the world to come together. And instead, we had to throw World War III into it also. I mean, it really shows you that the people who are the adults in the room are hell-bent on destroying us all.
Well, the US military is the worst offender in the world when it comes to the climate. So it's like, it's literally the opposite. We're all coming together for more bombs and wars and climate change denialism, which ignoring the military industrial complex
pollutes more per person than any country. Remember when Elizabeth Warren wanted to do a green military?
Green.
I'm just never going to get past how much I dislike her, gotta say.
No, it's done. That ship has sailed.
Yeah. Anyway, so Doomsday Clock. Yay. Yeah.
But just to end on a ridiculous part, we're always here with climate that we have to do our part. The military, we cannot overcome all this climate stuff by drinking less coffee to combat climate change. And the ironic part about this story, I actually read it. That's ironic in itself, but I read this article and I wrote an article in grad school on how bad for the environment the pods are. Like coffee pods, they're awful for the environment. And their solution was to drink more coffee pods in this article.
What?
So, yeah.
Oh
they're like,
my God.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway.
Yeah.
The bullshit that capitalists will throw at us to push their narrative, and it just never ends.
Well, that was something, I think it was either Chevron or Exxon that came up with the personal carbon footprint like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So that, again, everything is always put on an individual basis. Yeah. Instead of, we're never going to be able to counteract what the 7 biggest companies in the world do to destroy the climate. You can recycle all you want.
Right.
Don't use straw. And you should, but
you should, but to ignore that they're not doing this stuff and it undermines everything you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like, none of us should shop at Walmart because it's providing slave labor, blah, 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 but it's the cheapest place to buy a lot of shit.
Right.
Same thing with Amazon. None of us should shop on Amazon.
And Kroger's and Ralph's. I mean, all of those places, right?
But so the people to blame are not the poor people who shop at these places because they're just trying to put diapers on their kids or whatever. The people to blame are the people who allowed that place to provide the slave labor to do all these evils.
Exactly.
So but if you're rich, don't shop at fucking Walmart. Don't buy anything on Amazon, but
don't have your clothing line made by child slave labor.
Probably not.
Right.